This episode of the Gooner Ramble podcast is sponsored by the new app called Bookie. That's BOOKEE. Sign up by using the promo code Ramble, deposit and bet £10 and get a free £10 bet. That's Bookie, BOOKEE.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Gooner Ramble podcast. I'm your host Giles, and joining me tonight are regulars Dave Seeger at GoonerDave66. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Giles. How are we tonight?
Not too bad at all. We've also got the drunken wonder himself. We've got Akhil.
Whoa. That's a bit harsh.
I saw pictures of you, footage of you at the Tollington, drinking and acting merry in front of a statue of the one and only Martin Whelan. That was
at 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
I know, and you already look lean. You know what I mean?
And you only came up to his waist.
Oh, brilliant. I just got there for the record. I mean, that's a bit harsh. But anyway, hello.
And I want to give a big welcome to a friend of the podcast who we'll hopefully be seeing a lot more of in the near future. The one and only, the irrepressible, the Asian sensation. Now with a golden tone.
I was the Asian sensation.
You still are, Ax. You still are. Well, to me, you always will be.
Thank you.
If you didn't recognise that tone, that voice, it's the one and only FK, aka F Carnage at Twitter. How you doing, sir?
I'm really well, man. Thanks a lot for having me. How are you guys?
Yeah.
We're all good. Better for having you
I
here.
was fine a week ago. Now I'm just a drunk, past it Asian sensation. Great.
Move on.
I thought Asian sensations were crisps, but anyway.
All right, cool. So,
okay. Thai sensation.
Yeah. So, moving on swiftly, we are coming to you a day after the EFL Cup game, or as Sophie from the pod last week calls it, the Carmen and Marriott Cup. I want to ask you guys just quickly hot takes. I want to know who you think announced themselves, who gave us a reminder of their abilities, and who stunk the place out. So I'm going to start with you, Dave. Dave, take it away.
Okay. Very, very, very upset for Callum Chambers. Thought he had a fantastic first half. Looked very good on the ball, very confident, and far more confident than Rob Holding. So very disappointed for him, but good to know he's part of the squad and looking the part. I thought Ainsley did very well, given he was playing out of position. Actually demonstrated something I wasn't aware about him, making up his own errors, and for Reece Nelson's errors, but very, very quick, and I wasn't aware he was that quick. So, yeah, I thought he had a good game. Reece had a, stable debut, but the biggest positive for me was just Jack getting 90 minutes under his belt. I thought he probably, forgetting the opposition for a second, he dominated the first half, and it doesn't matter who you're playing, if your passes are precise, whether you're playing Man United or Doncaster, they were very, very precise. He looked like his old self in tight spaces, probably the only player, we have, other than Santi, who can do that. The only thing that remains to be seen for me is whether he's going to get back that burst of pace to sort of go past the player, which we didn't see. But certainly the passing and the close feet and the good control was all still there. So fantastic news that he got 90 minutes under his belt. Stunk the place out, barring one assist, probably Alexis. But I'll let others comment on that.
Go on then, FK. Follow that up.
Going into the game, I was really surprised just how strong a team we played. I wasn't expecting, certainly not Sanchez to play, but obviously I think he was just needed to get some game time just to up his sharpness. Holding, Chambers, Mertesacker. Yeah, I agree with Dave. Unfortunate for Chambers going off getting injured, because I'd quite like to see him get a run in the team this season. Midfield-wise, the biggest plus point was Jack, obviously getting his 90 minutes. First time he's completed 90 minutes in almost, 3 years of football. So very, very happy about that. He had some real nice touches. He's got his style of play is so easy on the eye. The way he controls the ball, the way he drops shoulder, plays those short and long passes. It was a real joy to watch. And I know it was only Doncaster, but you've got to play, who you're up against. So, I was expecting more once I'd seen the team lineup. I thought we'd maybe put 3 or 4 past Doncaster, but, unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. So it was quite a flat game. Didn't really get going. Sanchez was a bit frustrating. I don't know if you guys noticed his body language. A lot of people talked about that after the game, but, at the end of the day, we got through. We've given some squad players some game time, and the biggest plus point, like Dave says, Jack being back for 90 is fantastic.
Axe, you were there. Give us your rundown.
It was, there was a few players that I was quite keen to watch. Obviously Wilshere was one. And, Dave mentioned his kind of, will he have that burst of speed, and we didn't see it. Well, I mean, we kind of did once when he was actually going the other way. It was on the bar line. It was actually would have been just at our block, Dave, actually. And where he absolutely tracked back. And, he did look, he looked sharp there, and then looked like he still had it. He was still good on the turn, that little, when he lets the ball kind of roll past him and uses his shoulders, and he still had a bit of that. So I thought, right, the Doncaster, the opponents weren't exactly, what he'll face week in, week out in the Premier League if he gets back. But, it was still very, very promising. So I was quite pleased with him. Like you, I did feel for Chambers a little bit, thought he did well. I thought Rob Holding first half was quite shaky. I think as the game went on, maybe he got a little bit better, but he's clearly someone who's out of a bit of confidence at the moment and just needs a couple of games. Even though, he maybe didn't have the best game, he still kept a clean sheet, and hopefully that will help. I was excited to see Nelson. I think he was reasonably quiet. There's that debate, isn't there, that, the playing 3 at the back works well when we've got our first team, but does it work well when we've got our second team? Have we actually got sort of wing backs in order, or second choice wing backs to kind of play in those positions? And I think you could probably argue no. So it'll be interesting to see what we do in the next few rounds if we do continue with this formation, or do we switch it around and I saw and heard a few people yesterday talk about that. We're kind of just putting players in who need minutes, but it doesn't really matter what position they kind of play in. And I sort of see that argument, but at the same time, I kind of see it as, if someone like Callum Chambers is playing in a 3 and then we do have an injury crisis and he comes in, then he'll be playing in the same position in the first team. Whereas if he plays in a 4 here, then there's a bit more sort of adaptation to do. So I kind of see both points of view, but I just think that was slightly harsh on Niles and Nelson, really, and they were the 2 most inexperienced. So it was a little bit harsh to judge them. But generally, the game wasn't, first 25 minutes, Arsenal were on top, and it looked like a training exercise, looked like an attack v defence, and you thought, well, there's goals in it here. But then Doncaster got fairly comfortable, and I think those nerves had gone. The last 15 minutes, they finished quite strong. And second half, I thought they had a very, very good half. And, I kind of, as I was leaving, a lot of Arsenal fans were clapping the Doncaster players off, and I think they really deserved it because they really did well.
I think it's an interesting point there. Sorry, Giles.
Go on.
It's a very interesting point that somebody pointed out to me the other day on Twitter, and I hadn't really given it any thought. He's playing both his left backs or left wing backs in the first team at the moment. And Nacho, I think, has proved that he's the best left-sided in a 3, but it does create a problem for you that when you're having the midweek game, whether it's in the Europa League or whether it's in the Carabao Cup, you might have thought at the start of the season, Nacho would be the second choice wing back, if you like, after we sign Kolasinac. But obviously they are now both looking like they're going to be starting week in, week out. So it does leave you a problem that you perhaps might not have perceived you would have. And hence you're playing Maitland-Niles on the wrong side of the pitch in the wrong position. But
does that mean you have to play it clever and think, okay, well, if Monreal does play wing back away in Europe on Thursday, then potentially we've got Brighton at home. You potentially put Holding in there, or you put Purr in there, or you sort of maybe have to play a little bit of a rotation game there.
I absolutely agree, but we know what Wenger's like about it.
Well, I tell you what else I wanted to know really from you guys is, do you think Maitland-Niles could be the backup right wing back.
I've been saying that all day. Yeah.
Because, you know, we can't expect, I mean, Hutch is coming back, still coming back to form. You're talking about 50 games a season at least. He makes about 50 sprints a game. At some point, we're going to have to rotate him. There's no real obvious candidate apart from Debussy, but no one knows where he is. Could you, I mean...
I tweeted, I didn't watch the press conference, I normally do, but I read the quotes and the question was literally about Debussy and the answer was just no, no, no. That was all that was on the website. There was no explanation. There was no nothing. It was just like, is Debussy still out or something like that. It was just like, no, 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 no. Like, that was it and it moved on.
Exactly, I mean...
But I do think you're right, Charles. I do think, you know, he had a whole season at Ipswich playing right side of midfield. We've seen last night, he got a real turn of pace. He played right back in the FA Cup before we changed formation last season. Yeah, I totally agree. I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles is the logical cover right wing back because whilst everyone's seeing him as a central defensive midfield player, why are they? Is that one fantastic display at St Mary's, and suddenly everyone seems to pigeonhole him as, he's just cover for Coquelin. Well, if he is cover for Coquelin, right now he's sixth choice of six central midfield players, where he's second choice right wing back. I think that makes far more sense for him at the moment.
And I think people have forgotten, you know, he's developing, coming on and developing in his not so distant past. At Ipswich, he was playing it on the wing. I mean, he can do the sprints.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's only recently we've converted him to this central midfielder where we don't really see, you know, that side of his game. But I do think, I mean, and apparently somebody said that he prefers to play wide anyway. So
I tweeted that today. It was an interview he gave, but
yeah.
it was in 2015 to be fair. But he said very clearly that's where he sees himself on the right of midfield.
Right. So yeah. What do you reckon, Fries? I mean, do you think that's a position he could sort of, you know, become the permanent understudy or this first understudy if you want to Hector Bellerin?
Well, look, like so many players, I have no idea what Arsene has in mind for him in terms of a long-term future. But I don't see the hype about him, actually. I'm sorry to disappoint, guys. I've seen him play a couple of times. I don't think he's that good a footballer. I don't think he's ready for Arsenal Football Club in terms of being a regular, certainly. Your question, Giles, about being an understudy to Bellerin, yeah, I guess logic would assume that that's probably where we're short and that's probably where Wenger's going to try and, you know, squeeze him in. I can't see him getting more than, I don't know, 5-6 appearances, certainly in the league for us this year. I think he would only come in the case of an injury, and even then, Wenger might be forced to use one of his senior centre-backs and play them out of position on the right to cover Bellerin. I was surprised that it's actually embarrassing what's going on with Debussy, why he's not doing anything at the club, and he's quite happily taking weekly wages, I'm sure. Jenkinson obviously loaned out. Yeah, we are short at right back. There was a lot of talk about Bakary Sagna maybe sort of training with us, maybe having a month sort of trial with us or something, but I don't know what's come of that or if anything. So yeah, I mean, by process of elimination, Giles, I can see him being a deputy right back, but I must be one of the very few Arsenal fans who just doesn't see much in him yet. And I know it's early days. I know he's young. I know he's going to develop, but so far I wouldn't even call him a right back, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, so what about Reece Nelson then? I mean, he's very young. He's only 17. Do you think would you rather see him play as an understudy when called upon, when need be?
With Reece Nelson, I think it's slightly different because in the time, in the game time that he's had, certainly during sort of pre-season and sort of limited appearances so far, he's shown glimpses of like incredible talent. Like not just, had a good game, but he's shown real glimpses of natural talent that everybody just wants to see more of. I don't think he's anywhere near ready for the first team in terms of the league and stuff. I'd like to see him play more games in the League Cup, possibly even the Europa Cup. Why not? But whether he's going to be a right wing back, people on Twitter keep telling me that he's more of an offensive player, maybe a winger in the making or a wide forward in the making. So again, do we want to kind of like develop him for a couple of years in a position that he's maybe not going to end up in? I'm not sure. I think he's done that before with, everybody remembers Ramsey being played out wide and the list just goes on and on. So I'd like to see more of him. Again, he's probably not one for this season, and I'd like to see him played in the position that he's going to end up being played in. I think that was one of the problems that we had with the Ox, he was played in such a wide variety of positions that it just really stifled his development, I thought.
Indeed. Okay, so it looks like we're going to really have to manage Hector's minutes because he's the only obvious candidate at this point in time. Injuries. You said Chambers got an injury, didn't he? Was it a hip injury? So he's kind of like down until after the international break. Welbeck also. Yeah. Welbeck also groin injury, coming back after the international break. Ozil, I saw a video of him in the gym today. Any chance you reckon that he will be back for West Brom, guys?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah?
Available for selection.
Yeah. And that brings me to another question. This week has been sort of like a look into the possible future, and also, we can speculate about life after Alexzil. Sunday we saw the.
I see what you did there.
Did you? I didn't see. I just tried to make up a word. You know my English diction. You know my diction. We saw on Sunday we were without Ozil. We were without Alexis for a large amount of the game, guys. Just if we can refer back to Sunday, I mean, what did you think that there was hope for life after? Did you think Wenger was showing us how a blueprint, a picture of how we could play without them, how we could exist without them? I'll start with you, Dave, and then go over to the others.
I would say, in my humble opinion, it was more of a blueprint for how we can play big away games this season. Personally. Whether it's a blueprint down the line, the players, Iwobi and Bella and Welbeck were perfect for that game and that opposition, rather than the players who are going to play in those positions next season. I would say personally, I do think Alexis and Ozil both won't be here next season. I'm not arguing with that. I think they definitely won't be here next season. But I think that was more of in the short term, I thought it was quite an exciting blueprint of how we should be playing, against the bigger teams that we're up against, challenging at the top of the table this season in the big away games. That was personally how I saw it.
Faisal, I mean, what about Sunday's game was you really impressed about? And what was it about our formation, our setup that really impressed you?
Well, first and foremost, before the game, I thought we were going to get pummeled. And when we saw the lineup and I saw sort of Xhaka, Ramsey, and then Iwobi, my heart kind of sank and thought, geez, what the hell? What are we doing? I thought maybe he'd go in with El Neni just to kind of fill up the midfield and try and park some type of bus. But no, after the game, looking back, the shape of the team was just incredible. We were so well disciplined, and for the first time in a long time, Xhaka and Ramsey, they actually worked like a proper pivot. One went, one stayed, the other went, the other stayed. And as a team, just every single player was on it from the whistle. The first 7 or 8 minutes were quite ropey. Chelsea kind of broke through a couple of times and they're putting a bit of pressure on us. But once we gained a bit of confidence, we grew into the game and I thought we played really well. And in terms of what impressed me, positional discipline from the back three all the way up to the front men. I thought Welbeck and Iwobi, Dave hit the nail on the head. They were really impressive. I was pleasantly surprised. And we just kept our shape and we kept our discipline and it was a really good performance. So very, very happy with that.
Akhil, how important was Iwobi's part in this? Iwobi and Welbeck's part in this game. I mean, how did you see? What did you see? How would you say what they did was so important to how we played on Sunday?
I think it was huge. It was disciplined. It was a unit. It looked a team. We looked like we had a clear plan. And, sometimes there has been, we went to Man City last year and we lost the game 2-1. But if you remember in that first half, Walcott scored very, very early. And we went to half time, 1-0. And then obviously we had the sort of offside shouts for the City goals. But in that first half, we actually had a plan and we looked like we were doing it quite well. But I don't know. I think it's probably more Sanchez potentially than Ozil. And I remember, the game when we beat kind of Bayern Munich 2-0. And we were kind of pressing from the front. We were trying to stop those short balls from Neuer to his 2 centre backs. But there was at times where when we did go 2 up, it was like we were actually then slightly starting to drop deeper, but then Sanchez was still pressing, and it just looked like, is he not listening to instructions, or are the others a little bit nervous, or has the manager not given instructions? We just couldn't tell. But on Sunday, it just looked like everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew the game plan. Everyone knew the strategy. And I tell you what, like, you know, if we had got one of those chances, if that Danny Welbeck header or the Aaron Ramsey shot had gone and we had won the game 1-0, then I think, well, yeah, like I said, and then I think Sanchez and Ozil would have been even in a worse position, because these questions will continue. These questions will definitely go on, that actually, are Arsenal better off in big games away from home without their big two? And this will only go, and it will keep going until we play a game away from home where both of them play and we play well. Because if we don't, then there's going to be questions again. So, I don't know. It's a weird one, actually. It's a weird one for Ozil and Sanchez. It's a weird one for Arsenal. And you know, yeah, when the team was sort of read out, a few of us did look at each other and think, "Oh, bloody hell, Iwobi's in for Sanchez," you know. But like, I mean, hindsight's a great thing. And obviously, if Pedro had scored that first one and Chelsea went on to win, we probably wouldn't be saying that. But you know, you got to say that it was, everything was spot on about it. And I'm not one for cheering 0-0 draws, and you know, we want to win every game we play. But what impressed me and what pleased me was the actual performance. You know, I don't expect Arsenal to win every game, but I expect them to put in a performance and to give it their all. Go on. Do
you think? I mean, okay, the next big one is Everton, but City really on the 5th of November.
I mean, we go to Everton as well.
Yeah, we go to Everton at the end of October, then we go City at the beginning of November. Would you bring back Ozil and Alexis? I mean, okay, would you bring back Ozil?
Yeah, it's hard to tell right now, isn't it? It's all on current form. I mean, the next 3 or 4 are potentially winnable if Mesut Ozil comes back and plays, I guess, how he did this time last year. You know, with influencing games, goals, assists, then you would struggle to drop him for a big game. But I think if their form, I know you asked about Ozil, but Sanchez as well, if their form is patchy, if they look distracted, then, you know, there's an argument that you do leave them out again, because you want players that are committed. And in those kind of games, you need commitment.
I think with Welbeck and Iwobi, obviously you had work rate, and let's face it, Iwobi hasn't lasted a full game very often, so that was good to see. But it was more the ball retention. So I think with Ozil, you wouldn't have a problem. But with Alexis right now, you would have a massive problem. You know, he's just not retaining the ball. He's not retaining the football. And whilst Iwobi didn't do anything spectacular against Chelsea, he just never gave the ball away. And if you gave the ball and Chelsea don't have the ball, they can't score. It's that simple. And that's what they did very well.
On top of that, though, Dave, when we didn't have the ball, we kept our shape. I mean, was saying that, you know, that Iwobi didn't make any tackles, interceptions, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at where he was positioned, off the ball, his cover shadowing, you know, he wasn't giving Alonso or whoever else is coming down the left a lot of angles, a lot of opportunities to play them down the left. He also, tucking in, allowed Hector, who was back on the right, a lane to run down the right. We know you get that with Danny on the left, but to see there was a really intelligent and maturity about the way Iwobi was playing, even though the numbers didn't suggest that he made such a great contribution.
Totally. Giles, gents, that is exactly why I would absolutely start Ozil and Sanchez, because I think Ozil's a fall guy here. I think the team in recent games have been, positionally just completely open, completely lax, very kind of like offensive and almost suicidal in terms of defending and backtracking and just keeping shape. And what we've just talked about, the back three were outstanding. The wing backs were brilliant. Xhaka, Ramsey, they were very, very careful. One stayed. And I think if they do that and you keep Ozil in and you don't play Iwobi, what you can get is the same defensive performance, but Ozil gives you something else at the other end of the pitch. And that is why I would absolutely play him. And at the end of the day, Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez are just two amazing footballers. They are as close to world class as Arsenal are going to get right now. And personally, I think you'd be daft to leave them out in a big game if we can get the shape right and the tactics right. And it looks like the team are working quite hard on that.
just to come in there and I probably do agree with most of that, but did you guys not see something different? Did you guys not see the mentality of the players a little bit different? Did it, I don't know, maybe it's not the closest example, but did it remind you a little bit of when Thierry Henry got injured in that final season and actually a lot of the other players kind of went, we can kind of play as a team here. We can all step up a little bit. Did you not see players like Ramsey actually step up and not have Sanchez getting frustrated at him for if he did anything wrong? Did you not see players like Welbeck think, okay, I've got to take more responsibility here? The back line, the wing backs. Without those
100%,
star names,
100%.
there was something. I'm not saying you don't bring them back, because at the end of the day, you want to win football games and you want to score goals. You just need the right system. But I don't know. I saw something in that team that I was, I haven't been proud of Arsenal for a while. And yeah, obviously the cup final, we were proud of Arsenal and things like that. But I was more proud the fact that how we've responded since Liverpool and the way those players were with each other. I was more proud about that, because people are saying we're broken. This player wanted to go, this player wanted to go. I mean, Mustafi being the biggest example, but Mustafi was great and they just looked united. And I don't know, when you've got real stars who, Arsene Wenger said this last year, he said that in that sort of football writers thing, but he said that there comes a stage where people came to my office and asked me, boss, are you in or are you out? Because they were starting to question his kind of commitment. And I know it sounds weird to say that after 20 years, but people were questioning his commitment. Are you actually thinking about the long-term future here? Or are you just thinking about sort of yourself in the next game? And there might come a point where the same thing happens with Sanchez and Ozil, where if you're a player there and you think, are they putting a shift in? And then you start to question it, that, are you in or out? So I think that will come into it as the season goes on. And I don't know, as I said, I can't explain it, but I saw something. I just definitely saw something in that team on Sunday.
Following
you
on
wouldn't
from
have
that,
a problem, but you wouldn't have a problem with that. Sorry, Giles, you wouldn't have a problem with Ozil, because Ozil isn't the player that would turn around and berate his teammates when things aren't going his way. But Alexis was doing it a lot last night. He was doing it a lot. And that's got to affect his teammates, that sort of attitude. It has to.
Before we got,
and also,
go on, Fred.
No, also, I was just going to say, if you compare back to Anfield, it helps when you've got your right back playing at right back, your left back playing at left back.
So much.
And it also helps, when you look back at the goals that we conceded at Anfield, every time they broke, Xhaka and Ramsey were on the edge of the Liverpool box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas you can bet your bottom dollar now, if you look back at the average shape picture that's come out on Twitter, you can see that Xhaka was deep and stayed there. He was actually quite a big circle in the middle of the centre circle. So that position of discipline, if you can adapt that and if you can keep that and bring in Ozil and Sanchez, then, I totally agree with Akhil. I did see something different, but I also was left wondering, oh my God, if we just had that little bit of extra quality in that final third to find that killer pass or just hold on to the ball a bit better, we could have maybe even won the game.
Yeah,
just about that.
That's Ozil, not Sanchez.
Yeah.
Well, just about that Liverpool game, like what you say, I think there was a lot wrong there, wasn't there? It was just, and something I kind of noticed after, and I thought back about that, during the warm-ups in that Liverpool game, you actually had Sanchez and Chamberlain warming up next to each other, and Sanchez looked like he was giving Chamberlain instructions, and when I watched the game again, Sky picked it up as well and said that, Sanchez has come in, he does look focused here, he's really, but it's weird how they were the two that thought they were going, there's no doubt Sanchez thought he was off as well, Chamberlain certainly, that it was just, that game for me was just, it was all wrong in terms of, I think Arsene Wenger's right in terms of the transfer window brings uncertainty, but then he shouldn't have played them. And I just think now that's all gone. I think, again, that's got something to do with those players being united and me seeing something different, because most of those players now know they're here for the whole season, whereas with Alexis, we don't know if he's going to be here in January or not.
Can I ask you guys, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I looked at people like Ramsey, Welbeck, Kolasinac, Xhaka, Bellerin even, from what you guys are saying, Wiltshire last night. Are these guys ready to step up and be leaders and be, because, throughout their Arsenal careers, especially Ramsey, Bellerin, and Wiltshire, they've looked up to, they've had to take their lead from, big personalities, stars, elder statesmen. As we see our two superstars most likely not renew and go on and leave, you see Peter Maseka retire. Koscielny's probably a fading force. Are you expecting these guys here, all around the same age, step up and become leaders, coming out of the shadows, owning their place in the team, especially someone like Ramsey, because you cannot deny Ramsey had a colossal game on Sunday. He's totally outshone Conte, and he's outshone Conte in the Charity Shield and in the FA Cup. We've seen that he's a leader for Wales. He can be a leader here. All the way, if you look at even onto last night, from what you guys are saying, Wiltshire dominated the game. His presence, he feels the game, doesn't he? He feels the atmosphere of the game. Wenger always talks about his intelligence. The way he feels the game. He knows exactly what's required from the game. Do you think it's time for these guys, or it's about time these guys now step up and own the team? Faisal.
Yes.
I'll come to you, Dave. Faisal first.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's about time they stepped up, that's for sure. And it's about time they took.
Are they ready?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's about time, but I'm not sure all of them are. I mean, Kolasinac, very, very early days. I know you mentioned him. New signing, looks an absolute beast, but he needs to really settle into life at Arsenal, and he's doing a great job so far. Xhaka, a little bit temperamental last season, but certainly finding his flow now. And wasn't he captain at his previous club? Am I making that up?
Yeah, he was.
He was.
Okay, so there's something obviously there
captain
in terms
his country
of his,
as well.
there you go. So there's something clearly in his personality that is the international team manager think, and his former club manager must have seen. Jack, everybody loves the way that Jack fights for the Arsenal shirt. Everybody knows, he's Arsenal through and through. He loves it, but that can also be his weakness. Sometimes he's just a bit too hot-headed. He needs to learn to kind of keep calm in situations like that. For me, and I've said it for a couple of years now, I would love to see Aaron Ramsey captain Arsenal Football Club, because I think not only the journey that he's been on as an individual with his leg break and his the death of his mentor, Gary Speed, and the way that he's developed himself and come back from the lowest point in his career at Arsenal to the way, like you say, Giles, he is a leader for Wales. Funnily enough, his uncle is actually a client of mine, and he said that Ramsey for years now has dreamt of captaining Arsenal Football Club, and he speaks well, he carries himself well, he looks the part. I mean, I would love to see him become captain of Arsenal Football Club. Bellerin, not sure. Especially with all the stuff that was going on about Barcelona in the summer, you wonder whether his heart's really in it. Yet he's an Arsenal boy. He's been at the club for a long time. But I just don't know if he'll ever materialise into captain material.
Not the captain material. You don't always have to have to be captains. But Wenger said, if you look at the Invincible era, this Invincible team, he said there were leaders in different departments, there were leaders in different ways. I think Bellerin, although he may well go back to Barcelona, his personality is coming out a bit more. He hasn't got the competition for fight with Oxlade-Chamberlain. He's been here a little while. He's a Spanglish. He's a Spockney or whatever you call him. He's well established in the team. I love my words. What do you reckon, Dave? What do you reckon? No,
I never thought. I wrote about it this week, actually. I think there's, going back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with Gazidis saying that the Arsenal model is the Leicester model, not, splash the cash model. There are some big decisions to be made, and there is a core of players, most of you mentioned. I would add Lacazette, Welbeck, into that core of players who basically in a couple of years' time, there are decisions. I don't think we can do anything about the players that are going to go this summer. But we can do something about the players that might look to go the following summer, and I think we need to do it now. We've made a mistake in as I said last time, stating the £180,000 a week offer for Oxlade-Chamberlain. That's the starting point of any contract negotiations. But right now, and I never thought I'd hear myself say this, not agreeing with Faisal, because I also do that all the time, but I never thought I'd say this. I would give Aaron Ramsey the armband now, and I would give him a massive pay deal. I wouldn't give the same to Ozil and Alexis. I would build the team around Aaron Ramsey and Xhaka. I would, and I would give him the armband, same as Faisal. But it needs a big payoff, because I know he's turned down a contract this summer, and we need to build around those core. And the addition, I would love to see Mustafi nailed down and sort out what his differences are with the club, because he was immense on Sunday, and he's only going to get better if he's the main man.
And I think the other thing is there's a massive decision to be made on the goalkeeper, and that's the spine of the side. You know, if we've got Lacazette, we've got Xhaka and Ramsey, we've got Mustafi, we just need to decide, because if we're talking a year or two's time, Petr Cech is not the man. So that's the other big decision. But no, I agree. I would go with that core. I would secure them on long-term contracts, and I think we're going to have to say thanks, but, you know, great service to the likes of Laurent Koscielny and Per Mertesacker. Much as we love these guys, certainly Laurent Koscielny is not the future. It's not going to be the future. So I agree with you entirely.
Okay. Akhil, anything to add before?
Yeah, no, Bob is spot on, really, isn't it? I mean, and that's the bit that I'm talking about sort of being a team and being united. It's that are you in and out kind of thing, and players like Ramsey, okay, the question might not be there yet, but in the summer that question will be there, and along with Mustafi and a few of the others they mentioned. So, yeah, no, can't argue there.
Today, Wenger said you come with questions that were about Alexis Sanchez, and asked these questions were, you know, is there some sort of underlying theme to him trying to selecting Alexis Sanchez, even though he doesn't really look like he's at the races? And he said there is no disguise. There's no disguised attitude on his side. I am trying to get him back to fitness. That's all I'm trying to do. Looking at Alexis's body language, is there? I mean, people have speculated over the summer that if he stays, he doesn't get his dream move, then he could become more of a hindrance than a help. Looking at his body language of recent times, do you think that could be something that manifests itself? I'm going to start with you, Akhil. Or do you think there's nothing to worry about?
Yeah, well, you know what? It was weird, isn't it? Because at the start of the summer and stuff, it was, nah, keep him, make him stay. You know, he's not that sort of player. He just wants to play football. He just wants to win. He just wants to play. And then you kind of then near the end of the transfer window, and I guess Arsenal had the same doubts in the end, like fans did, that actually, I don't know, is he going to be that focused? Is he going to be? And then we kind of started the season when it was that Bournemouth game. I mean, you know, Liverpool was a bit of a strange game, as we talked about earlier, because the window was still open. But then the Bournemouth game, the first game back, we were sitting together, Giles, and, you know, he came on and we were winning and he looked positive. There was I remember a time when Bellerin went down the right, put a cross in, but he was too close to the keeper. And Sanchez kind of gave him a clap, and there was a couple of other, you know, passes that didn't quite get to him, and he was still applauding the effort. And you thought, oh, okay, maybe he's going to be a bit more positive and he's going to be all right. And then last night happened, and then you had the arms waving. There was a couple of times where he made runs that he wanted Wilshere to find him, and Wilshere, for whatever reason, didn't. And you just saw a little bit of frustration coming back in his game, and I just don't know, you know. I mean, a few people have said he looked more frustrated yesterday than he has done, but then, I mean, he looked a lot more frustrated last year. I just think, I really don't know. You know, if you look at kind of how the summer's gone and the start of the season, most people would say it looks like Ozil won't be any problem. He's still integrated in the team. But Sanchez, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think it helps with kind of the media kind of looking at every single thing he does, you know, at Chelsea on the bench when, what was it, Ramsey at the post and all that, kind of hitting Ospina. And was he excited because it was going to be a really good goal, or was he laughing at Lacazette's miss? Was he laughing on the bench at Anfield? I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, I think it's a tough one. I think we all knew what sort of person he is, Sanchez. I think, you know, when I sort of visited the training ground, there was hints there that he is quite high maintenance, and that obviously hasn't changed. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
Fires, are we blowing this out of proportion? As Akhil said, you know, the media have a way of magnifying and intensifying everything. I mean, are we blowing it out of proportion? Is there anything? Are you kind of sure? Do you feel assured that you know, he'll just, you know, come Monday night, he'll be back out there and be in the Alexis that we want him to be?
I think everybody likes sensational stuff when it comes to Arsenal, especially the media. I think that, you know, it's just something to write about. I mean, Akhil was right. I think a lot of us are looking into this too much. Sanchez is the sort of player that in every game he just wants to win. You can tell that's just the nature of the way he plays. He's at Arsenal now for a few years, and we should know well enough that anytime something doesn't quite go right, or a misplaced pass, or a messed up chance, he will always, arms flailing and pointing and shouting. And I think that could just be a communication thing. I don't think he's fluent in English, so he obviously doesn't know how to communicate with some of his teammates, and he just gets frustrated. He's just an animated type of guy, and we just have to accept that. What is clear to me is that Arsenal obviously wanted to keep him. And Sanchez obviously was open to leaving. But I think we can take it as a positive that because he didn't hand in a transfer request, and because he didn't kick up a big fuss like, some other players have done in the past and some other players have done at other clubs this summer. I think that's a good thing. So I'm not entirely convinced that he's being forced to stay. I think he's quite happy to see out his contract. He knows he's going to get that mega deal at some point over the next 12 months. He knows that a big club are going to come in and, actually it might have worked out better for him, Giles, because, there's rumours today talking about the Manchester clubs giving him big, signing on fees, 20-25 million pounds, which Arsenal obviously are just not going to do. So he knows he's going to get that move. I think he's the sort of player that if we picked him on Monday, he will give it his all, and he'll give it his all until the rest of the season. But I think it was Dave who mentioned, the impact on the rest of the. Sorry, apologies if it wasn't you, Dave. But one of you guys mentioned one of you guys mentioned about the impact on the rest of the team and whether they'd be like, is he in it for the rest? Is he in it? Is he Arsenal? Is he 100%? I think he's one of those players that you can see just by the effort he puts in and by the distance he covers and just how hard he tries that he's going to play football and he's going to want to win. So I've got no worries about him from a performance point of view.
I don't have any problems with him performance effort wise. My problems with him at the moment is the form isn't there.
But
it's not even close to being there.
Could that be he's had he's come back late, he's had an injury, obviously we pressed him into action at Anfield and that was the wrong move. I mean, you can't really say too much about the Bournemouth game because Bournemouth wasn't really much of a barometer. And now every other season he's come back and wanted to play straight away and he's been fine. Why should this be? The difference was he came back and he had an injury, didn't he, this time round? He had some kind of injury complaint this time round. That was a difference. So he's coming, as Wenger said, he's coming back a bit. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be better when he's playing with the first choice players. Because last night he was getting I didn't like the way he was berating Maitland-Niles. I mean, it's just, I don't want to see a senior player in Arsenal having a go at a youngster, particularly when they made a big deal about how lovely he was with all these guys in training. I just didn't like to see that, but I wouldn't decry his effort. He'll never give anything less than 100%. I agree with that.
But Dave, is that not the price of Maitland-Niles trying to make it a big club? I mean, it's not going to be a softy approach if you do something wrong on the pitch, or if someone wants to communicate and say, look, do this better. Isn't that part of his learning experience? Is he going to become a better player because of that?
It is, but there were the instance I'm talking about. He didn't do anything wrong. Alexis did it wrong. That's what I don't like. Alexis makes a mistake and blames other people.
He does it all the time, though, doesn't he?
He asked Maitland-Niles to throw it straight to him, it was the wrong thing to do. He wanted the ball, the wrong throw to make, and then he has a go at Maitland-Niles for doing exactly what he's asked him to do. That's the side of Alexis that frustrates me.
I'm just watching the clip from last night of Jack Wilshere just outside the D, dinks it over to Giroud, who turns on a sixpence. I mean, Giroud, for such a big guy, he really does have great technique, doesn't he? But that was a lovely passage to play. That was a goal. Oof, that would have been talked about for a while.
But he cannot, much as I love Olivier Giroud, he's not the player to play in this system. He really can't do it. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work for me. So.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Monday night. We've got an engagement with Tony Phillips and ex-Arsenal player Kieran Gibbs. Guys, let me have... I mean, it's early now. I mean, I know things can change over the weekend, but as our guest for tonight, Fries, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your lineup?
Well, assuming we don't get any more injuries, I'd go check and goal. I'd keep the same back three. I think they did really well. Mustafi in the middle, fine choice. Koscielny out to his right, Monreal out to the left. Kolasinac and Bellerin, I think they picked themselves. Xhaka Ramsey picked themselves. If Ozil's fit, I'd bring him straight back in for Ozil. And obviously with Welbeck picking up the injury. If Welbeck was fit, I probably would have picked Welbs. But I'd now go in with Sanchez and Lacazette. And I fancy us to win quite comfortably.
Axe?
Yeah, I'll go along with that. I think we'll see Bellerin and Kolasinac kind of now cement their place, really. Ramsey, Xhaka. I mean, after a clean sheet, you're not gonna, especially at Chelsea, you're not really gonna change that. I think, yeah, I mean, what you said, what FK said about Welbeck, that would have been the biggest problem and the biggest dilemma, because what would you have done with Welbeck? I think it's now a lot easier with him out, because, you know, with Iwobi, I think Iwobi will play certain games. I think Iwobi will get a chance, but I think he'll probably play his fair share across the competitions rather than just in one competition. So that does mean it's very easy to bring Sanchez and Ozil back in. So, and I think we'll see that. And I think, you know, against a team like West Brom, who will try and play a little bit, but they will certainly try and keep 10 men behind the ball at times. I think, you do want your fair players there. So, you need the talent on Monday night, whereas at Chelsea it was talent, but it was also that work rate. It's a little bit different on Monday night.
Dave, do you concur with all those?
Unfortunately, yeah, I think that will be the team. I possibly would not bring Alexis back and bring Ozil back, but yeah, I do think they'll both play.
Cool. Just one more thing. Oh yeah, and predictions. Sorry, Dave, your prediction for the game?
3-1 to the arse.
Axe?
I'm gonna go with the 3-0. I think we'll keep another clean sheet.
And Fries?
I was going to go 3-0, but I'll go 2-0 just to be different.
Dave, do you see Wiltshire forcing his way into this midfield? Or do you think it's a rotation thing, you know, rotating out Ramsey for a game or rotating out Xhaka for a game? Or do you see him taking one of their spots?
No, I don't. Just in one of their spots in the short term. I think all these questions will be answered when we see whether this is the formation for the whole season or whether he's going to change formations from game to game. Because if we're going to go back to a 4-2-3-1, I think there'll be more opportunities for Jack to play, whether it be at 10 or in the double, in the pivot. I'd love to see him play more. I think he needs to prove his fitness, and I think he's started to do that. I would also say if he doesn't get game time, much as he loves the Arsenal, Faisal said he's an Arsenal boy, he will want to go in January. He wants to play football every week. He's good enough to play football every week. He wants to play for England. He still thinks he's good enough. So if we don't give him the game time, we'll lose him. So I think it's important that we do rotate. But whether we will or not, I'm not sure Wenger sees it the same as us fans.
Fries?
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of that. I think if we had to pick a cup final team tomorrow, he's obviously not getting in it. But if managed correctly and if he can stay fit, and that's the key thing. You know, I just want him to stay fit. Like, even the game time doesn't bother me, Dave. I just wanted to see him, have a season without injury and make a few appearances here and there, not only for his confidence, but just because he's a great player. He's such a talented player, Giles, that in the longer term, if he does stay fit and we get 15, 20, 25 games, it's a big ask, I know. But if he gets through that, there's absolutely no reason why he couldn't be competing for a starting spot in the team. I think he's that good.
He played 37 games last year. He had a season injury free. He had his leg broken in a freak tackle. It's not a recurrence. So he played 37 games for Bournemouth last year.
That was obviously a decision taken by the club to give him that exposure, and Wenger obviously felt that he couldn't have given him, that many games for Arsenal because he just felt he wasn't at that level. But that's what I mean now. Now that that he's got that under his belt, Dave, and now that he's had a good summer and he's trying to work his way back in. I mean, look, there were glimpses. I know it's only Doncaster, but there were glimpses last night where we thought, oh, Jack, one touch passes, dropping the shoulders, blind passes, just brilliant. Just there were touches there that I thought, oh, this is Jack, and he's on his way back, and that's what I mean. If we can just ease him in a few 20-minute appearances here and there, maybe a few run-outs in the Europa League, I think he's good enough, Giles, to certainly challenge Xhaka and Ramsey. It'd be quite interesting to see Xhaka behind Ramsey and Wilshere maybe in certain games. I don't know, but I'm not a tactician. But I think he's good enough for sure.
Okay, so just quickly off, Hazel, do you see him staying beyond this season then? Or is it really dependent on whether he forces his way back into this team?
Judging by what Dave says, if he's pushing for game time and that's his critical, decision-making factor, then he probably won't stay. I think he will stay. I think he wants to play for Arsenal Football Club. The only way I can see him going is if, maybe a massive European club comes in for him somehow, or maybe West Ham. He's got West Ham in his family and whatnot. So,
or if Arsenal don't offer him a contract.
I was going to say, you're missing the point there.
But why would we not? I mean,
it's funny
if
because
he's fit.
Wenger did say that he wants.
You already haven't.
Wenger did say before the season, he said that he wants Wilshere to have the best career, whether it's here or not. And I thought that was very interesting, that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we haven't offered him a contract doesn't mean that we won't. I think also maybe there's an agreement there to say, look, Jack, get yourself fit, prove yourself that you can play 10, 15, 20 games for Arsenal, not for Bournemouth, but, prove you can get to that kind of level, and then we'll talk. And maybe he's relaxed about it, maybe Wenger's relaxed about it. And at the end of the day, Wenger's been so supportive of Jack for so many years, and not many clubs would stick with such players year after year after year. And I don't think Wenger would say goodbye so easily, but I do think it's crunch time. And I think Jack needs to prove his fitness and prove that he's able to play at this level. And if that's the case, then they'll probably rattle out a contract fairly quickly.
Cool. All right. So for what it's worth, fingers crossed indeed. For what it's worth, my prediction for the game is I'm going to go 3-1, same as Dave or Axe.
Same as me.
Give us your odds. Give us the odds for Bookie.
3-1. 3-1 is 10-1. At 2-0 we had 11-2. So, the bookies do think that a 2-0 win is the most likely result. And coming on to that, of course, we've got a deal with a new sporting app called Bookie. That's BOOKEE. And if you sign up, put the promo code Ramble, deposit a tenner, put a bet on, and you get a free bet of a tenner as well. So you can go and put a free tenner on your 10-1 for Arsenal to win 3-1. That's the Gooner Ramble tip.
And it does work for me, finally. I've had my £10 bet on more than 4.5 goals last night, which I've lost, but I've got my £10 back.
Well, there you go. You can put your free £10 on 10-1, which is our tip. 3-1.
Good stuff. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank all the guys for coming on. Dave, thank you.
Cheers, my friend.
Akhil, thank you.
No problem.
And last but by no means least, the lovely FK. Thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Oh, thanks, gents. It was a real pleasure.
Asian sensation.
Top man.
Hashtag not bitter.
Yeah, hashtag not bitter. All right.
Mate, I really enjoyed that. Thanks a lot, Giles. Appreciate that.
No
and big shoes to fill with was. I think he'd be proud though.
Yeah.
We called Dave into thinking we could.
don't tell him.
You called Dave into thinking that Ramsey should be captain. So I think.
He'll be falling over himself with that one. All right. So
thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
No, definitely. So from me to you, from us to you, I want to say thank you for listening to Gooner Ramble podcast. Catch us on all the platforms. That's all for this evening. Up your Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal.
This episode of the Gooner Ramble podcast is sponsored by the new app called Bookie. That's BOOKEE. Sign up by using the promo code Ramble, deposit and bet £10 and get a free £10 bet. That's Bookie, BOOKEE.